You know, we were starting a ministry, we were starting our marriage, we were starting being parents, and everything was great.
Youth pastors Gloria and Eric Vazquez had only been married a few years when they found out they were expecting their first child.
And everything was going great, no problems in my pregnancy. And finally, my daughter came.
But by the time little Paula was about 3 months old, some unusual swelling developed around her liver and spleen.
The doctor checked her, and we were wondering, why he took so long. And he finally said, you know what, we're gonna run some tests and this and that. And eventually, after 15 days, they told us, well, your daughter has a genetic disease that it's called niemann-pick.
People with niemann-pick disease lack an enzyme which breaks down cholesterol and other fats in the liver, spleen, and brain.
And they said, no, there's no cure. There's nothing that we can do. This is a very rare disease, and your daughter is going to die. And she's going to die maybe at 2 or maybe at 3 years of age.
Gloria and Eric sought out second opinions, both in Mexico and in the U.S., but the news never improved. Therapy made everything seem normal for a while, but then...
The little things that she could do, she started having problems doing them. And when I saw that she was not smiling, as she did, that was the time that I knew that she was like a candle that melts. Something like that. Her life was just diminishing.
Paula grew more disabled and disfigured as her organs grew disproportionately large. She would have uncontrollable convulsions. One day, it got so bad that Gloria and Eric took her to the hospital, even though they knew nothing could be done.
Well, my husband is paying the parking lot. I was carrying her. She was 3.5, almost 4. And all of a sudden, she expired. And that word expired, I know now what it is, because she really, all of her breath just left her. My husband said, don't cry, because for him, it was a relief that my daughter was with God, and now she was healed, and he was okay with that. But to me, it hit me when she died. I didn't have a daughter, and it was like, I didn't care if she was with God or not. I wanted her with me. So I started trying to fill the void, going to places where, for example, an orphanage that they had kids with sicknesses. So I thought, maybe that's the purpose. So I would go there, and what I was trying to do is look for my daughter in those kids. So I knew that was not for me. I just had to wait until God healed my heart and healed my husband, and until we were content with where we were at that point.
That time eventually came. And that's when Gloria and Eric decided to take the safe route and adopt a little orphan girl. But not long after Rebecca turned 5, they found out that another baby was on the way. But would the same genetic disease that killed Paula claim this new little life as well?
The doctors had told us that we had 25% of probabilities that the sickness would repeat, and 75% that it wouldn't. My pregnancy was fine and perfect, and my daughter Erica came to life. We were super happy, but of course, in the back of your mind, you're thinking, okay, tell us that everything is fine. And sure enough, all of a sudden, 3 months and a little bit more, the doctor tells she had the same diagnosis as the first daughter.
Little Erica fought her disease longer and harder than her sister was able to. And through it all, Gloria and Eric continued their growing ministry. Their faith was holding strong. At least it looked that way on the outside.
While I was leading worship in one of the groups, my mother saw me and said, you know what? You are coming here to lead the worship. I just want you not to lead. I want you to worship God. That's when I knew that I was not okay with God. I did not want to worship God. I did not want to. I was serving Him. I was in the ministry. But when she confronted me to the reality that I was not worshiping, how can you worship God and tell God, you're so great and you're the healer and you are all this and his nature and everything, when you have your daughter she died, the other one is gonna die. Of course I didn't have any feelings of worshiping. So I said, God, you know that I don't want to worship you, and you know that I'm not there. God told me, take care of my business and I'll take care of you. You just worship me. That's it.
So that's exactly what Gloria tried to do.
We were organizing a conference, a youth conference, where 2,000 kids were gonna go. And the night before that conference, I was looking at my daughter and I told my husband, something is wrong. I know something is wrong. And we were embracing her, we were praying, and all of a sudden, I just could say hi to your sister. Then she died on our arms again.
Not long after, Gloria and Eric moved back to the U.S. Their ministry in Mexico, done. 2 children, gone. It was more tragedy and loss than any one family ought to endure. Then,
one day my husband says, you know what, my head hurts. 2 days later, he dies of a brain aneurysm. The last words I heard him say was, I don't want to die of pain, and he falls in my arms. Now, when you say, why, if I ever asked God why, that was the day. Because that day I said, I mean, really? Really? What, not, why? Why now? Why now? I just could not understand. And to tell the truth, I didn't know if I was going to believe in God at this time. I thought maybe nothing that we believe is true. And now I was alone, really alone.
Gloria wondered where she belonged. Was her life over? Did God have anything more in mind for her than tragedy and pain? While she was waiting for an answer,
I went to the doctor because something was wrong with my ear. I didn't know what it was, so they did an MRI, and the doctor comes and says, you don't have anything in your ear, but you have a tumor in your head.
The tumor was growing on her optic nerve. Without surgery, she'd go blind. Gloria finally started confronting the question she hadn't asked till now.
The why me? And immediately, I really knew that God was saying, and why not you? And why not you? You'll see, we're gonna use this for my glory, so you just keep going and keep worshiping.
But the operation was difficult, and there were painful complications. When Gloria woke up,
I was screaming of pain, and I was listening to my mother praying, everybody going up and down, and all of a sudden, in between all that, I just said, God, help. And I felt this huge, like if somebody big embraced me, and I really hear we are gonna go through this. But immediately I felt peace. I still was in pain, but I was at peace. And to me that gave me a purpose, because then I could realize and I could hear God's instruction saying, you were not born with children, you were not born with a husband, but you were born with a purpose, and that's still there. Number 3 died, number 2 died, your number 1 is still here. And I still have a purpose for your life.
Today, Gloria is living out that purpose with all the energy God gives her. In addition to her work as a translator, she speaks and sings at conferences and churches and at women's events around the country, sharing with other people in pain about experiences she wished she had never had.
Well, I'm glad he didn't ask me, because I would have said no thank you. I understand now God is using the experience for others. And to me, that's the whole point. We are here to serve others, not yourself. So if God can use my story, or my daughters that, for example, they never spoke, but they have spoken more through me telling about them and what God did, not what God didn't do, but what God did do, then they have spoken more than they would have spoken live. So that to me is something that I would have never planned it. God planned it. And to me now I am satisfied. And that is the whole thing. I'm not missing anything. There is one word that keeps me going, and that is expectant. Every day I live with expectation of what God has for me.